Hello, Sam Owens here with another helpful hint or tip on how to solder this time. I know a lot of people, soldering is not one of your big things. Well, I'm going to introduce soldering basics to you that will allow you to have the confidence to try it yourself. And you might want to practice with it before you go and try to add the resistor to your slingshot turn signal. Okay? Now, let's pretend that this is your switchback lead that goes, this is the switchback LEDs or sequential LEDs that go to the turn signal light on the left and right. We're just going to show you one, and then you'll do the same thing with the other side. Okay, at some point, because there's going to be a connector on this end or is connected in, so the best thing to do is find a good place that you would want to insert the resistor, and it would fit within the cable loom or what have you. So I'll leave that to you to decide where you're going to cut. Okay. All right, I'm going to say you cut a point that you decide is right for you. And before we go any further though, I need to have you to get some materials. You're going to need a little, actually this is a wood burner, out of a wood burning kit. You can get them just about anywhere, a hardware store. They're also called soldering iron. And if it's brand new, then you don't have a problem. But you might want to take a file and just make these contact areas bright and shiny. And the maximum heat will be delivered. Okay, then go ahead and plug your unit in. There'll be a little switch here on this side. It says off, there's on. Now it will come with a holder that will keep it off of the material of your desk or what have you. I'm laying it down, it's fine for me with this demonstration. Now you're also going to need some solder. Usually a hardware store or just about any place, auto parts store will have a little dispenser of solder. Solder is going to allow you to attach the wire to the resistor. Okay, so you're going to need that. I do have a soldering iron like this, the old-fashioned type. If you have one, then you can use this just fine. You don't have to buy another one, but these are much more expensive. This is cheap and dirty. Now another thing you're going to need is, I got an assortment package online of heat shrink. Heat shrink is great for insulating all of the soldered areas, all the metal and what have you, and not using tape. Tape gets unraveled and what have you. You have to know how to use shrink wrap or you're going to end up making a problem. So I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. Okay, so have you shrink wrap. You want to select shrink wrap that is going to fit the wire. So before you strip it out, make sure you select one that will slide over tightly, but not too loose, because you don't want to have to shrink it down too far. That will work fine. Now I only have one piece of this, so I'm going to cut it in half so I can show you what we're going to do. If you get a package, you're going to get a number of these, but all you need is enough that's going to cover all of your soldered area. You could cut this off, but I'm not, a little bit. Okay, so first thing you have to do is when you cut this, take the shrink wrap for both ends and slide it onto the wire like this, and slide it a good ways back. The reason being, if heat gets onto this, it'll shrink down onto here and you will not be able to pull it back. So pull it back far enough on both sides. Don't forget this, because once you solder the resistor in there, you have no chance to move it back anymore. So take this one and move it back a good distance. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Just as long as you have it about there would be fine on both ends, okay? All right, now what we got to do is we've got to take a stripper, and it's graduated with the right size. About 18 gauge probably is going to do the trick for this wire. Most of them are going to be 18 gauge. And you want to cut back a little bit right there, and we do the other side. Okay. Okay. Now, take a nice twisting like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to twist this around like this. Okay. You want to do it just about like that, okay? That's why I said you could, I'm not doing this right now, but you could cut this resistor leads off a little bit. You don't need quite as much. So you look at where you're going to put it. If you need them a little shorter, that'll be fine. At least maybe 3/4 of an inch is probably plenty. Okay, now you want to make sure the ends are all down, so really tighten them down. You don't want nothing sticking up, because you have to slide this back over those areas when the solder is on there. So, and keep it straight, no kinks or anything, about like that. Okay, and this end, you don't want that connected up and get onto the insulation. So I have mine a little bit that way, right there, back from the insulation, because you don't want to miss being able to slide this on. Now, I'm going to show you the soldering technique for this, and we're going to see if it's hot enough. Yep. Okay, what you want to do is take a little bit of solder and kind of touch the end. That's fine. And then you're going to go and you're going to put these solder in up underneath, right in the middle of where you're going to solder, right there. What you want to do is heat up the wire and everything, and then touch it with solder and let it flow. You don't want any globules, so keep it flowing. And then heat it. And no points, no sharp points, because you aren't going to be able to slide this over. Now, this is very hot to the touch. That's why this is back here like this. Okay? And so now it'll be ready to go. We've got a good solder point there. You let the solder flow all over that. Now let it cool down before you attempt to slide these on. I can go over, and while we're letting it dry, cool, you go over here and do this one. Make sure you get this below the, or not over the insulation, right about there, and then I sit here and give it a nice turn all the way, making sure all the ends like that. Take your solder, touch this again, and you might even clean it up a little bit on something. There. Now, have your solder ready. Put this up underneath there. Let it heat a little bit, and then start touching the metal, and it should, the material along the way. Not too much solder. Okay, there we go. Okay, there you go. Looks good. Now you want to let it cool good, because if you try to slide this down and it's too hot, it'll start to shrink and you're going to have trouble. So I would let it cool good before you slide them. But that's what the connection is going to look like. Making sure everything is nice and straight. Okay, now that's getting about right. Okay, now I'm going to quickly just slide this over all the way up like that. One sliding motion, and this one the same way. It's cool, straight, like that. Okay, now it's ready to do the heat shrink with, like that. Just a little bit at a time, getting it hot, and it's shrinking down and making it tight, and it's going to be insulated. And if you do get any solder on there, just make sure you wipe it off. Okay, and it should be tight all the way around, just like that. So you don't want to heat it so much it's going to burn it. Okay, so there you go. There's what your connection should look like. It's not going to cause any problems, and this is the way to do it. Then this should have already been all hooked up, so just adding the resistor like this is going to correct your problem. Good luck, and also we've come across some more information about when you install external lights or LEDs onto the turn signal system. Check your emergency flashers in the off position. In other words, you shouldn't even have to have your key on, and you put your emergency flashers on, they should flash. If you have switchback LEDs or sequential lights or of any kind, you should test it, because sometimes it will work when it's with the key on, but with the key off in the condition that you might need on the side of the road. You want to test that. If it fails, the resistor will correct the problem, because sometimes your turn signals will work properly with the external LEDs, but they won't work with the flashers all going in the off position of the ignition switch. So this solves all your problems. Okay, it's easy, quick, and now you know how to solder. So get your soldering iron. If this is something you've added any kind of LEDs or lighting to your turn signal system, you probably are going to need this. This is a 100 ohm 2-watt resistor. That's what you need, and they come like about 5 of them at a time. Some of the guys, they got 200 of them. So go online. If you can't find 100, 110, 120, anything close to 100 will work fine. Okay, good luck, and I hope this solves your problem.